Hi guys, so in this video I'm just going to show you the two different approaches, how to use a multiple amp setup, how to split your signal basically. And these the two approaches, the first is the Stevie Ray Vaughan approach and then the second is the Ry Cooder approach. But I'm just going to demonstrate a few sounds with this approach. So basically I'm going into my guitar obviously. So guitar is coming out into the reverberamo, and which is a reverb unit, and then it's being split here into two Dumble style amplifiers, a 50 watt and a 100 watt, and they're going through the 50 watts going through a 112 and Altec Lancing, and the 100 watt amplifier is going to a 3x10 cabinet, and these are Mystic Blues amps, and really nice sounding amps. So let's just hear. Okay, so here you can see the two amplifiers. Basically, we've got a 100 watt and a 50 watt amplifier, and that's how we're splitting the signal. And it's really just down to this box here. Okay, it's a passive box. This is actually made by my good friend Ry Cooder, who made these amps, and that's how I'm splitting the signal. And this is kind of my rig. This is the rig I use for my kind of Stevie Ray Vaughan, my blues, Hendrix, Peter Green, whatever inspired rig. I have the two amplifiers, the 50 watt and the 100 watt. Now, when I'm playing my other kind of band, which is more like world music, Ry Cooder, Cuban, African influenced music, I use a totally different approach. And you can check that the tone of that with my other videos. And I'm using essentially two Filmer Sound amplifiers, going through the same cabinets, actually, these two cabinets, which I also sometimes use with the 50 and 100 watt. And so this has got 15 inch in it, and this has got 3x10s. So and this approach is I'm using the Goose Master, which is a copy of Ry Cooder's Green Man, a copy well influenced by, and this is made by Wow Amplification. And basically this is a totally different approach, because this is actually this has got two tubes inside it, which actually kind of gives the tone a bit of a boost, a more chewy sound, much more valvey tone coming out of that. So it really imprints, it's got a tonal imprint, a tonal footprint rather, that imprints itself onto your sound and then delivers it to the two Filmer Sound amps. So that, if I was to, for example, use the Stevie Ray Vaughan approach into my Filmer sounds, you'd get a different sound, because you're not going through this extra kind of circuit inside this Goose Master. But the two Filmer sounds really do, they really benefit from having, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, they benefit from having the circuitry in the Goose Master just to really give you a big, bold, beautiful, crystalline sound. That's not really needed with the Stevie Ray Vaughan, because these are Mystic Blues amps. They work in a different way. They put the tone's already there, and I just need the tone bigger, So the kind of approach I had, the reason I like two ODS amps, but I also I hasten to add I have my own signature mother amplifier, which is called an RG70, and that's actually a different thing. That's more like a steel string singer sort of vibe, which I'll talk about at a later date, maybe later this year. But talking about this setup here with the two custom by Cooder Mystic Blues, I'm essentially kind of pretending that the 50 watt is a kind of a blackface amp, what we call a blackface amp era, 1960s era amp, and you can put that through maybe a 3x10, gives it more of a kind of super reverb sort of sound, or a 115 for kind of a vibroverb sound. and then you've got the bigger amp here, just for, it's kind of like a twin reverb, I guess you could say, and that just gives you just bigger sound, you know. So that's kind of the idea, to have the Stevie Ray Vaughan dual setup, and also the Ry Cooder setup. And another really cool reason to have two amplifiers is obviously in case one amplifier goes down, you're doing a show, you're doing a tour, it's always good to have a backup. So you've always got two amps going. If one goes down, it doesn't matter, because the signal's still going to go to the other amplifier, you know. Now, also, I will do a demonstration of this, but you can also do a wet dry rig as well. And that's a really cool thing as well, which I've experimented with, and I'll do a video, but I'm gonna have to hook up, you know, some mics and Pro Tools and get that, so you can actually really hear what's happening there. But the wet dry rig has you know, some advantages and disadvantages, but that's a very, very cool sound. It's, you know, people like Alan Hines, guitarists like Alan Hines, do that to great effect. You know, my friend Brian Prophet, he sort of hit me to this whole wet dry rig a number of years ago. But anyway, I'm just using this as a straight kind of mono setup, but in two different amps, just to spread the sound, make it bigger, bolder, and more sort of ambient. And so that's really the two different rigs. The Stevie Ray Vaughan approach, using the passive box here. You can actually have up to 4 different amplifiers in this. I think once Cesar Diaz, when Stevie was recording in Step album, he had something like 25 amplifiers. So he had some kind of a splitter box going to 25 different outputs. But you know, I can never envisage myself using more than 2, let alone 4. So, you know, I mean, it could be a case that you want to have, you know, the actual, like a vibratone, which is a kind of Leslie unit, and then that could also, you know, take its feed from one of these outputs. So, you know, there's lots of kind of uses for them, just besides splitting 2 amplifiers. But they're the 2 different approaches and the 2 different sounds. Now, would I use the Goose Master through the 2 Dumble style amps for a Stevie Ray Vaughan tone? No, I wouldn't, because the Goose Master is a different thing. It's a different beast. It, in part, you know, it has its own tone to itself. So there'd be, you know, it would change the sound of the 2 amplifiers. You know, it just wouldn't really work. The Dumble style amps wouldn't sort of, in my opinion, it wouldn't sound as good. Not with these 2 amps. Maybe with other amps it would. But where the Goose Master works really well is on a Ry Cooder style setup, where you're using smaller amplifiers, and you know, you're playing a Coodercaster, obviously guitar, and you want this crystalline, very touch sensitive sound that maybe you're not just going to get from your kind of these vintage style amps. You know, maybe that's lacking with the amps, but with the Goose Master, it's going to bring all that back and just give you this really beautiful sort of effect to your tone. So that's why I don't kind of use the Goose Master, and I use this unit here, which is, like I said, it's just custom by Cougar. Built this little unit for me, and I mean, you could probably build one yourself very simply. You can get some schematics, you do a bit of research and find out how Stevie Ray Vaughan one was wired, and you could do that yourself. But there you go. Any questions, guys, let me know. And that's my 2 different setups.